This is Overtime with
And
Matty.
welcome back to our podcast here at Overtime with Matty as part of our Pacific Grandstand show here on 531 PI. My name is Willie Poaching.
I'm Matt Manu Samoa.
And we will be your presenters here on the show. Welcome, Matty. Good to have you. How's your week been?
Yeah, been a good week. Getting back into the swing of things. Obviously, I returned from Australia last week, and yeah, this week's been pretty full on. Olympics is coming up, bro, so everything's been firing in the newsroom. I was sorting out coverage, highlighting our Pacific athletes and all that sort of stuff. But it's been a bit of a tricky day this morning to wake up and get to the office. Obviously, last night wasn't the result that we talked about, we wanted as Queensland supporters, which we'll delve into a little bit more. But I just want to say, for everyone that messaged me, that hated on me, and that were messaging me all last night about State of Origin, you keep it to yourself, all right? You keep your comments to yourself.
Are they the same people that have been messaging me that I haven't heard from for the last 2 years?
Jeez. Exactly, bro. Exactly. we had a three-peat right in our midst, but now these guys want to come out of the woodworks and talk about New South Wales.
Well, congratulations to them.
Yeah, congrats.
We'll chat a bit more about Origin in a little while, but we'll start the show off with a big game last Saturday night at Eden Park, second test for Scott Robinson and his All Blacks for 2024, taking on the English at Eden Park. Close one in the first test in Dunedin.
Yep.
They just scraped home by a point, 16-15, the All Blacks. Gallant were the English, and a lot of sectors of New Zealand society thought that it was just a one-off, that England were going to be pushovers come the test in Auckland.
Yep.
That the All Blacks were going to run away with it, but it was anything but that for the All Blacks. It was no easy ride for them. What were your thoughts on the second test?
Yeah, I thought that it was sort of similar to that first test in which the All Blacks are still, some things weren't going their way. They were making a couple of errors, particularly in that line-out space that we talked about last week, bro, and how crucial that was in some of the mistakes that the All Blacks made, which led to English try and English, getting into that good ball zone. But I thought that it was a test that saw some of our veteran players really stand up. We saw Burton Barrett had an outstanding game when he came off from the bench and had that stint late in the second half to lift the shoulders of those players around him, and he produced a beautiful break down that left edge to set up Mark Talia on the left side. But yeah, the English, they didn't go away, man. They were consistent right till the 80th minute, and they looked determined and ready to come and break that 30-year streak that the All Blacks have had at Eden Park. So I was quite surprised by the quality. I'm not surprised by the quality, but I was quite impressed by the quality of rugby that was played from the English, who came a long way to come down to the Southern Hemisphere, but put on a great performance. Yeah, your thoughts, Will?
Yeah, I thought the All Blacks tried to show some of what the public wanted, and that's some ball movement, that's some footy. There was some play early doors, which got Cody Taylor into a hole. Unfortunately, he just couldn't quite get the support needed when he made a 30, 40-metre break. Probably needed to be in the hands of someone a little bit quicker, but a good start for the All Blacks. It was a good start for the crowd. For mine, it was my first live All Black experience, going to a game and sitting in front live watching the team that I've followed.
What was that, bro? It
was outstanding. It was amazing. My wife and I went down to the stadium. We walked, got part of the crowd, and you feel the buzz just walking to the stadium.
Yeah.
And I've been to Eden Park a few times for different things, but never for an All Black game, and it feels like that's where it's meant to be. Wow. You feel like you're at the home of the All Blacks when you watch them. But that's not being disrespectful to any other stadium around the country, but that's how it felt for me being there. And it was awesome seeing the anthems being played, the haka live in front of you. But just to be there as part of it was a great experience. And talk about walking there, walking away was an experience away. The crowd is packed, the streets are packed. Walking out Eden Park. So, all of those made it a wonderful night for both myself and my wife.
Nice.
But for the game, back to the game, the issues we spoke about in the first test, like the line-out was still an issue. I don't think they've nailed that yet. And that will be an area that I know that Razor will want to fix up. Before half time, England kick a ball across field. There's some space that Marcus Smith finds. They end up getting the ball and scoring, kick the goal. They take the lead 14-13 at half time. How concerned were you then?
Yeah, I was a bit concerned because we talked about Marcus Smith and the X factor that he brought to the game and the type of player that he is, and for him to do that, do an All Blacks kick and do All Blacks-esque try on the All Blacks, I was quite nervous because I thought, man, maybe this will be the building blocks, one of those moments, those pivotal moments that'll give a team a mental edge, especially going into the break, leading against the All Blacks. So I was a bit nervous because. And I feel as a spectator, but when these playmakers on the field, when they have good looks or they get a bit of momentum, I feel like it'll provide a lot more confidence throughout the game so that they can see a lot more space, they can see a lot more things on the field that they can move freely and do whatever they want to help their team get over the line. And I thought that would be the same with Marcus Smith, and he did. In the second half, he still performed well, but I was a bit nervous going into that second half, especially when it came down to that last 5-10 minutes when there was a lot going on, penalties back and forth. England were pushing into our red zone, and we were finding it hard to get out or get some position and get some momentum to get back down to the English side. The English defence was again really good to nullify some of that All Blacks X factor, but yeah, it really went right down to the wire, which I was quite surprised and quite nervous as well when I was watching the game, and when the ref blew that last penalty, obviously in the two players separated from the maul, and one of them was leading, and it was a bit of an obstruction call that was there. I knew that we had it in the bag, and you see the boys kick the ball out and jump up and down. So yeah, but man, Marcus Smith, he was one of those X factors, bro.
Yeah, I think the English side leave New Zealand shores with a lot more respect from the Kiwi fans.
Yeah.
Leading 14-13 and being at the stadium, you could feel there was some nerves in the crowd. There was some concern. As I said at the start, I think most people thought, and Steve Borthwick, the England coach, said this after the game, walking around the streets of Auckland and bumping into people in the public, they were saying to him, yeah, well done, that was a fluke, the first test. We're going to get you this time.
Yep.
We're going to roll you. And I think that was an opinion shared by a lot of the New Zealand population that watched the All Blacks. So for them to go in behind was a bit of a shock.
Yep.
And that was the case I felt at the stadium. It was almost silenced at half time. I was too busy soaking up the atmosphere and just taking it all in.
Yeah.
But seeing the rest of the crowd just almost silence, what's going on here? This isn't going to script.
Oh.
This isn't how it's supposed to be.
Yep.
They came out, and thankfully, as an improvement from the first test to the second test, Damien McKenzie found his kicking boots.
Yep.
He was outstanding. He kicked everyone to the time.
Those 20 seconds, man.
It's interesting seeing the shot clock and seeing when it comes up and watching, he's only got 10 seconds left. But you realise how long 60 seconds is.
Yep.
It's actually quite a long time. So they fixed that up. He got every kick that he needed to, got the All Blacks into a comfortable position, but then on came Beauden Barrett. He just turned things around for them and flipped the game on its head, not just with his ability and his skill, but with his effort. His effort was outstanding. When he came on the field and he kicked it downfield, but he chased and made the tackle on the back of it, which put England in a tough position down their end of the field, just turning that field position, which is so important in rugby union, especially when you kick it away, and to lead the team, come on and say, yeah, I'm going to chase it. I'm going to chase my own kick and turn it into a winner, was a real sign of confidence for the group, I thought, a real sign of confidence for the fans. And then, of course, he makes the break and he sets up Mark Talia for the try on the corner, saves the try down the other end, which you're talking about, ended up being the obstruction call, but he put his body on the line literally to get underneath it. I think there's some great signs for a side, especially for a coach like Razor, who's trying to make his mark, and he's got some young fellas in his group. When one of your more senior players or your most experienced player is coming up with efforts like that and coming up with plays to show the team, one, how it's done, and two, how to put your body on the line, and I'm willing to do it. It's a real big sign of education for those younger fellas, especially the ones that weren't playing but are still in the squad sitting there. That's what he's on the team for.
Yeah, definitely, bro. And I think that's consistent with the All Blacks jersey. You know, those effort areas are something that the All Blacks have consistently, you know, throughout history, been one of the things that they value as a team, that they want those 1%ers. You know, you could see it from the likes of when Richie McCaw talked about his time as captain, but as, you know, as an All Blacks, that they'll want to, you know, try and win every ruck, try and win every tackle, and you know, make some small efforts like chasing the ball is something small in the game. But for Beauden Barrett to do that, like you said, it would have, you know, inspired the troops, but also the younger players in the camp, just watching a world-class player. You know, he's been a World Rugby Player of the Year before, and for him to come in and inject some energy and some effort into the All Blacks at that time, I thought that it was crucial in the way that he came in, and I'd say that without him coming in and injecting that energy and injecting that effort that late into the game, perhaps the game would have been a little bit, it would have went the other way.
The conundrum now, I suppose, and the challenge for Scott Robinson is where to fit Beauden Barrett in.
Yeah.
And some quarters are saying that he's been excellent off the bench in the last two tests.
Yep.
So does he stay on the bench and keep becoming an impact player, or is he deserving of taking either Perofeta or Damian McKenzie's spot?
I think that it's a hard one, because, you know, Damian McKenzie and Perofeta did quite well in the English series. I think we're spoilt for choice to have a player like Beauden Barrett on the bench. Like, imagine having him on the bench, man. That's spoilt for choice for the All Blacks. But, you know, in my opinion, I'd keep him on the bench. I'd keep that impact and that effort that he can come and inject into the game, especially in those tight games where there's a lot of niggle, there's a lot of, you know, players that are fatigued, or there's a lot of confusion maybe on the team with the playmakers that are on the field. So for him to come in and quiet the troops and sort of inject some energy, like I said before, I think that he'll be useful on the bench. But whether or not, if he starts and takes the jersey off D-Mac or Perofeta, that those three in that rotation between those two positions, starting and on the bench, I think that they'll excel in either way.
Well, with that being said, the team was named today for the Fijian test coming up this weekend in San Diego at the Snapdragon Stadium, which will be played on Saturday at 2:30 New Zealand time in the afternoon. Beauden Barrett is in fact named at fullback.
Yeah,
he's rested a few of the starters. Perofeta gets a rest. We've got the team hot off the press here. Tamaiti Williams gets his first start.
Nice.
Sufo Amua gets a start. Fetchenul gets a start on the running side. Tupo Va'ai starts. Luke Jacobson starts. Ethan Blackadder starts. Cortez Ratama. He was fantastic off the bench last week.
He did great.
On debut.
Yep.
He was one of those that when you're there, the excitement of the crowd to see someone come on for their debut would have been such a massive lift of confidence for the young man. And he was very, very good when he came on for Finlay Christie. On the bench, there's a few debutants. George Bell, the hooker from the Crusaders. Ethan de Groot, obviously he's a starter. He's been before. Pasileo Tosi. What a great story.
That's cool,
the
man.
Front rower, the prop from Wellington, he gets a start. So does Sam Darry, who stepped into the fold for the Blues when Tuipulotu got injured.
Yep.
And Wallace Satiti. Will make his debut, hopefully, when he comes off the bench. So does Noah Hotham, who, through injury to TJ Perenara and the team, he's been drafted in. How exciting is it? Do you think it'll be for a debutant to be able to get out there and put the jersey on and perform the haka and before it was standing for the national anthem. Some things that you visioned as a child, you get to do.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it, man. That's every Kiwi's boy's dream, boys and girls, for them to put on that black jersey, the All Blacks jersey. I feel like in New Zealand society, and we talked about it before, that the All Blacks is like the pinnacle of sport in New Zealand, and it's the pinnacle of some aspects of society. You're seen as a role model for a lot of the young kids and young Kiwis around the country. And New Zealanders, they come from, they live in the country, they come from all walks of life, and you pulling on that jersey, you represent everyone in New Zealand. And for these youngsters who are getting the nod, or some of these people that are making their debut for the All Blacks jersey for the first time, they'll be carrying that. They'll be carrying that that inspiration that they had when they were younger, looking up to some of their senior players, to some of the All Blacks icons. And for them to get the opportunity to don the black jersey, I think that it's going to be huge. It's always a huge opportunity to wear the black jersey and to be named in that squad. But for them to run out, I think it's going to be great. And for them to do it in San Diego as well, in America, bro. That's huge. It's going to be a huge spectacle over there, to take the game of rugby and go play overseas, especially in America, with our cousins over in Fiji. It's going to be a huge opportunity for all the debutants. So congratulations to all of them, because it must have been a lot of hard work to get done.
Yeah, and the All Blacks have had mixed success with Test over in America. They've played the Irish, and they've played the USA, obviously, but when they went to Chicago. But this side that he's picked, with all the new experience and giving players a run, and obviously this is the time and the opportunity to do it.
Yep.
Is it a side that's ready to do a job on Fiji?
I think so. I think from what I just read the news before, Brian, and the assistant coach of the All Blacks said that they're not taking Fiji lightly. Despite their selections and despite some of their preparations during the week, that people might see Fiji are a strong side. And the last time that we played Fiji, back in 2021, I believe, Fiji did a great job physically against the All Blacks, and they were able to match them in some cases in that physicality, but also their exciting gameplay, swinging it out the back is something that the All Blacks can't let their eye up, and can't let, the Fijians play their type of style of game, especially when you're coming up against such exciting and exciting style of footy that Fijians provide. But yeah, I think the All Blacks, who they've named some of their veteran players. D-Mac will tee up his 50th test for the All Blacks, so he's going to be the boys will be wanting to get around him and do really well for them, for him in that big game. So those milestone games, and you'd know this too, Willie, that the boys try and get up and produce an extra special performance. And they've got a huge task ahead of them, because the Fijian boys, I think about 11 boys from the Drua were named in that Fijian side. So yeah, it's going to be exciting to see what unfolds.
Yeah, 11 Drua players from Super Rugby, along with players of the like of Semiradradra,
Man,
who's going to be dangerous for them. Some of the issues, talk a little bit of politics here for a little bit, some of the issues that sides like Fiji, Tonga and Samoa face, especially when they come into these types of games at this time of the year, is the restrictions being put on them by their clubs, especially the ones that play in Europe and play in France. The clubs aren't the best, and they show a reluctance to release the players. How important is it, do you think, that they are released to play for their country, that there's got to be something compulsory from International Rugby Union that says when your country plays, you need to be on board? We're talking about growing the international game, and Rugby Union international game is a fantastic product. But these smaller countries need their best players.
Exactly.
And that's the case especially when they play the top tier countries like the All Blacks playing Fiji this week.
Yeah, well, it's a tale that's been told for so long, to have our Pacific players wanting to go back and represent their countries or their home countries. But, these eligibility rules and these restrictions put in by clubs or by unions from their their countries that they play in have been really a really restricting factor for some of these superstars who would want to don their home jersey. Now, you look at the likes of the Fijian player, and he came and played one test for the All Blacks, and by doing that one test, he would be ineligible to play for Fiji for another 2-3 years because of that rule. Now, I thought that's unacceptable, man. If you pick him once and don't want to pick him again and consistently, then you're shutting out another opportunity for him to want to go and play. For their home country. Now, there's another side of it where some of the home nations and the home fans will sort of turn the blind eye on some of our Pacific players that now they chose the tier 1 nation and we don't want them back. But of course, everyone wants their players back to play for their home country. Now, you saw last year that the Ikale Tahi brought back some All Blacks and some former Wallaby as well, and Manu Samoa as well got some former All Blacks in there too, but they're at the end of their career, bro. They're at the end of their career where donning the red, the blue, the white jersey for our Pacific nations is something that I felt as maybe had been treated as an afterthought. Like I said, the All Blacks is the pinnacle, and they want to play for the All Blacks, the best team in the world, but now that the game is developing and we're seeing like the likes of Moana Pacifica and the Trua get up, these unions and these clubs need to start considering our players' allegiances and their wishes to go play for their home countries a lot more. Review the rules and look for better ways in which our players can choose to play for their home nation.
Moving back to this test now, for the All Blacks coming up, it looks like the team that played the 2 tests against England, there was only one change really with Finlay Christe coming in for TJ Perenara and Cortez Ratama coming onto the bench. That looks like what Scott Robertson sees as his main team, as his number one or preference team. For these guys that are playing this week, how important is it for them to have good outings, to show their best, put their best foot forward in order to be a part of the games during the championship?
Yeah, it's going to be huge opportunity for the coaches to look at the different combinations that they're starting to build with the new coaching systems involved. It's a lot different from from last year's preparations from 2023 with Ian Foster and the way that they'll be coached and the way that they'll be asked to play on the field now. So it's going to be huge for these players to go out and try and do their best in terms of their positions and especially the style of play that Razor will want to bring out of them. Now, I saw a cool moment where Razor, I think at the end of the game or maybe at halftime, and he joined the players' circle. And, just to see a coach like that, you can tell that it's a different type of coaching style that Razor, like, a former player that he brings to the side, that trust and that trust that he gives players and the assurance that give them that he can pull out their best performances out of them when he gives that kind of trust and assurance to their players. So yeah, it'll definitely be a huge opportunity, especially for those youngsters to sort of solidify their name to the coaching staff for the All Blacks that come at the end of the year when we're facing we're in the Rugby Championship facing the world champions, the Springboks. For them to put their hand up now in a game against Fiji will be huge and important.
Is there one of these debutants you think that will stand out? Which one of these debutants do you think will stand out the most and really push that team that played against England for a spot on the squad?
For the championship squad? I think it'll be a huge opportunity, and we've been singing his praises throughout the year, but Wale Sititi will be a huge player to have in that forward rotation for the All Blacks, and he's He's a barnstormer. He's a tackle breaker, and he's a workhorse right in that number 8 position. If he can go out there on Saturday and do really well and reflect that trust that the selectors and the coach has put into him by including him in that squad, then I think he'll have a huge say in being part of that championship squad at the end of the year. Yourself?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for Wallace Atiti, especially when he comes on the weekend, is just to be himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to be who he is and not get overawed by the occasion, and just to come out and play like he did when he played against the Hurricanes. He doesn't have to come on and try and be another Artie.
Yeah.
If he comes in and changes his plays, Artie's Artie, and Wallace needs to be Wallace. My one is probably Cortez Ratama.
Yeah.
I think he has a real opportunity to steal a starting spot at half.
Yeah.
Finlay Christie was okay
Yeah.
against England on the weekend, but I thought when he came on, he had a bit of a zip about him. And if he can show that sort of zip at the breakdown and with his passing and some of his box kicking and his energy to work for the team, he could have a little bit of Aaron Smith about him.
Yeah, harder.
And if he could hold on to that on the weekend against Fiji and display to the coaching staff that's how he's going to be when he puts that jersey on, I think it could be someone who gets a start at halfback in the absence of TJ Perenara when they go into the championship squad. So, but it'll be a good game. It'll be an exciting one, especially as you said, going to San Diego for both teams is a novelty.
Huge.
It's something different, which I think both teams will be excited about. But as Fiji look to take on the All Blacks, a couple of our other Pacific teams have been playing. They've all been in action. There's been a lot of international rugby union over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Tonga, Fiji, we'll talk about Fiji first. They've had a couple of games. They had the Barbarians a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they went down 45-32 at Twickenham. But they had a win last week against Georgia, 21-12. Tonga, they played Italy a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately for them, they went down 14-36 in Nuku'alofa. But Samoa have had 2 tests in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
They played Italy a couple of weeks ago, had a big win over them, 33-25. And I say big because they're part of the Six Nations.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
They're a big side,
Yeah.
Italy. They had a really successful Six Nations series to the point where they should have been in France.
Yeah.
They beat Wales at home, and I think they beat Scotland. So they've come a long way. So that's a big, big win for Samoa, and huge that they're able to do it in Apia.
Home, yeah.
They backed that up with a win over Spain last week, 34-30.
Huge.
So a big couple of weeks
Yeah.
for Samoa. And a new coaching staff with Mahonri Schwelger. And, he's been able to put his footprint on the team straight away.
Yeah, great. It's great for them to continue that momentum, especially after the World Cup last year. They did really well last year at the Rugby World Cup, and now there was that whole with the resignation of the former coach Selala Mapusua, and then bring in Mahonri Schwelger and what he could provide for the team and the players. And it started off really well for them. 2 test wins in a row, back, especially playing back home at Apia Park. I thought that it was great to see some of those Northern Hemisphere teams come right into the Pacific Islands and play some of our Pacific Island footy. Now, in saying that, in that Spain game, torrential rain right from the start, man. It was a muddy field, it was a muddy game, and it was a lot of back and forth. Manu Samoa were able to hold on towards the end, but it was one of those games that you really had to bite down on your mouth guard and sink your boots in the field and do really well. And I think that factor of playing at home at Apia Park in front of your home fans would have definitely did a number for the Manu Samoa. So really good signs, and good to see a lot of our Moana Pacifica boys as well in that squad do really well. It continues to reinforce the fact that these Pacific teams are developing and they're getting better because of their inclusions and the likes of Moana Pacifica and the Drua in the Super Rugby competition.
And it's exciting that they're playing. They need to be playing as much as they can. And for any team to be successful, you've got to be performing whatever sport it is. And that's why it's important for Samoa. And how important, though, is it, like Fiji get the opportunity this week against New Zealand,
Yep.
how important is it for them to really be serious about contending and challenging, that they play more Tier 1 sides more often?
Hugely. We heard it from the coaches last year at the Rugby World Cup about how important it was to have more tests, but also how important it was to test their arms against Tier 1 nations. Now, the more consistent that these games are played, the more consistent that these teams are together, and the more tests that they have throughout the year will be huge for the development of the players and the development of the team, but also the type of coaching and the type of organization that these national teams and identity that these national teams want to have. And I think that'll be that it's brought out extra or brought out a lot more when they play these Tier 1 nations. When they play each other and play these lower, like Tier 2, Tier 3 nations, it's all right because you get to test your arms against teams that are similar in rank than you. But when you punch way above your weight and you play these Tier 1 nations, you get to really chance your arms and see what quality of rugby you play and where you're at as a team, as an individual, but also you get to play against some of the best in the world. So it only continues to improve the players' development, but also the nation's development, the more tests that they have against these Tier 1 teams.
And it is considered a surprise when the lower teams are able to beat the Tier 1 teams, but it has been done.
Yeah.
In the past, the Manu Samoa has beaten the Wallabies.
Yep.
Fiji beat England just before the World Cup at Twickenham.
That was cool, man.
So it can be done. And for that to become more consistent and for these teams to be able to do it more consistently, they need to be playing those games more often.
Yeah.
They need to be afforded the opportunity to be able to play against those teams more often. Now, I do get the financial point of view. There's nothing to be gained financially by these teams going to Samoa or going to Tonga because they don't win. The difference between playing at Twickenham for England as to playing at Apia Park is totally different financially and what it costs.
Yeah.
But that doesn't help the game as a whole. That doesn't help the smaller nations. It's not helping them at the moment. What happens and what tends to happen is the big teams stay big. These teams don't get the opportunity to grow and challenge. And I think that's something that the game needs to look at, sharing the opportunity to grow.
Definitely.
When Samoa, as it's been the case in the past, are playing against England, I use England because I know the stories that go on, and they're playing for very little money.
Yeah.
But the English are playing for nearly £25,000 a game.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. It's a big difference in what they're able to afford and prepare. But that doesn't change the fact that you've got to keep challenging yourself. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
And so for our teams in the Pacific to get better, they've got to be challenging the best. You've got to keep playing against the best in order to keep improving yourself. Talking about the best taking on the best, this week we saw the best take on the best in the NRL.
We're talking about it, bro.
State of Origin.
Dang.
Yeah, we've got to talk about it, Matty. I know it hurts. To lose the series, but to lose the series in the fashion that we did, we went down swinging. Queensland went down fighting, and at the end of the day, in Game 3, New South Wales were just too good in those final moments, in the crucial moments in the game. It was the decider at Suncorp. Everything was on the line. It was built up to be a fantastic event, and it lived up to all its billing. It lived up to all the hype. I thought it's one of the most attritionally physical games that I've seen for a long time. Both teams just went at it, hammer and tongs, smashing each other from start to finish. And I thought both teams were going to fall away at some point. But we got to half-time. Queensland fortunately got a penalty to go 2-0 up. But you could still feel that no team really had an advantage other than New South Wales having to make Queensland defend quite a bit. But the physicality, whenever anybody carried the ball, you just cringe because you knew
The
some
crunch.
sort of massive contact was going to come. But, yeah, unfortunately, 2024 is New South Wales. But what's your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, huge game. I thought that physicality factor was something that was a big challenge for the Maroons coming into the game. Now, we spoke about it last week that they needed to match that physicality in order to have any chance. They didn't do that in game one, and they were really outmuscled and outpowered. But I thought that in that first half and those opening exchanges, especially, I think it was about the first 10 minutes, and you could see the energy and effort that in every tackle that the Maroons had against the Blues. You know, there was 3-4 men in the tackle. There was niggle in the tackle. There was, pushing on the face. There was a lot of ruck infringement that was happening from the Maroons. There was a lot more grit and a lot more, you could see the fierceness from the Maroons players. I seen Dane Gagai make a couple tackles, and he's getting up and he's pushing players and he's rubbing their heads and rubbing their faces. That's what that they needed, especially when you go into Suncorp at a decider to let New South Wales know that, hey, we're not gonna let up, and we're not.
Here we go. Oh, what's going on here? What's going on here?
Good game, mate.
Hey, man.
Jeez, I've just given you a rap and you come and throw it in our face.
Man, gee whiz.
Game, guys.
Ah, I like it.
My blood's boiling right now, man. My blood's boiling. I'm reminded. I see the New South Wales jersey, but. Yeah, that was one of our bros from the digital team who's coming to rub it in our faces, Willie.
Like I said, we haven't heard from him for the last 2 years, but
yeah.
he's finally come back again. Good on him.
Hey,
give them their time. Let them have their
last year,
moment.
a lot of our staff members after we won the game 2 last year, 2 in a row, and the series was shut out. A lot of our staff members who are New South Wales at PMN, they're real quiet, man. And we've only now just seen them turn up in their New South Wales gears, and only now turn up into the and really give their support. So
There's a couple I didn't even know were New South Wales fans till this morning.
there's a lot of New South Wales supporters online that
First time I've seen Tony wear that jumper.
Man, first time I hear the Morning Shack talk about the New South Wales Blues before. Geez, Gabby Regan, you never watched the Blues game, man.
Well, we'll get back to it. We'll get back to it here. What do you think was the difference for New South Wales?
I think it was a moment, bro. It was the moment, and we talked about it before, that a moment will decide who was going to take the game. Now, that 2-0 score at halftime was the huge teller that there was going to be an intense game, and whichever team gave up a penalty or gave up a penalty or gave up field position in the wrong way, that they were going to be toppled by the better team. And I think that it was fatigue that really shot the Maroons in half. That both sides were tackling back and forth, but the Blues were able to last that little bit extra to put them over the line. Now, you saw how Jerome Luai broke open that left side and to put Bradman Best over in that left corner just to get away and edge away from the Maroons defence, who were valiant throughout the game. And then they gave up that second try from Mitchell Moses, easily breaking through the Maroons defence. That fatigue factor where some of those players missed their targets. Hammer was too slow to get to his man when Mitchell Moses found that inch of space. He made them pay. And talking about Hammer, there was a moment in the game where he had an opportunity to march down the field, and it was a really crucial time as well in that second half when we were down by 2 tries at that time. Where he could have ran down the field, and he would have if he was fully, fit, and if he wasn't as fatigued as he was. But when he grabbed the ball on that left edge, open space, and he stepped into the defence, and he jogged, into the defence, into the tackle, I sort of could tell that the game was over for us there, because it was that small effort moment that we needed from the Maroons that was really the teller to say that the Maroons are really feeling it, and they turned around and weren't able to respond. Yeah.
Who are your standouts for Queensland?
My standouts for Queensland? Oh, that's a good question. Maybe I'd say Pat Carrigan in that middle. He never let the forward pack of the Blues intimidate him. He had some good looks on the attacking options against his teammate Payne Haas. He was able to do really well in putting him down and putting him on his back. But I thought Pat Carrigan did really well for the Maroons. He was level-headed throughout most of the game. He didn't let any other niggle get to his head. But I thought that he had a great game. an outstanding game. Yeah, yourself?
Yeah, I thought Pat Carrigan was outstanding from start to finish. His
Yeah.
physicality, I thought he put his body on the line. 45 tackles I thought he made.
Jeez, yeah. Good on him.
And every tackle had a bite to it.
Yep.
Every carry. He tried to save Queensland on a couple of occasions with his play 3, play 4 carries and yardage when the first couple of plays before him, struggling to get out of our own end. But he'd try and get some momentum, and more often than not, got on his front foot and got on his front to get us going forward and got us some chunk meters, which were important. But I thought Tom Dearden defended really strongly.
I thought Tom Dearden,
From his performance in game 2, he didn't have many attacking opportunities, but defensively really put his body on the line.
He was sound.
No more example of that when he put his shoulder right into Liam Martin, forced an error in the first half. So, I thought he was a real shining light, him and Pat Carrigan, for the Queenslanders. Your standouts for the Blues?
For the Blues, Angus Crichton, tip my hat off to him. For him to go off early in that first half, and for HIA and come back and produce a good performance. He was strong in every single run that he had, and his defensive efforts are really strong too. I thought that he was outstanding for the Blues. I thought Jerome Luai shut all doubt from anyone that doubted his style of play and his style of, the way that he plays. He's sort of morphed into that villain character on the field, but he can back it up, and you've seen him, his exciting style of play that he has, ball in hand. When he played that eyes up footy and he saw open space and he exposed that left side, I thought that he did really well. His kicking game as well, when he did that little nudge to force a drop out from the Maroons, I thought that was another additional factor that played into him having a great game. And you could see him at the end of the game. He did a mana wave and waving off all the Queensland supporters. Oh, I was fuming, man. I was like, shit, man, this is crazy to see him. But it was great to see him, one of our own Pacifica boys, go out and get the job done. So yeah, definitely those are two of mine. Yours?
Yeah, Dylan Edwards, I thought was outstanding on the night, and
great.
Missed game 1 obviously through injury, but I thought he was fantastic, and he is whenever he's called upon. He's nothing flashy.
Yeah.
No, that's disrespectful to put it that way. He doesn't try and come up with the flash plays, but his effort levels and his work when he carries the ball, he's always dangerous and always makes meters coming back. I think he got up to 200 plus meters last night, and always dangerous when he has ball in hand and safe when he's called upon defensively. And as you said, Angus Crichton, Wally Lewis medalist for Man of the Series, deservedly so, and probably an indication of where Michael Maguire wanted his team at. He played with an aggression that you don't see every single week with the Roosters, or I've never seen it with the Roosters.
Man, yeah.
He was niggly, he was annoyed at every tackle, whether he was tackling or being tackled, he pushing markers, pushing the person playing the ball. He took his game to another level, but that's the sign of Michael Maguire's side. Really, the world is against us. Let's go get him. Yeah. And he was fantastic. The way he's turned his season around has been wonderful. So, I thought he was deserved Man of the Series, and I thought Dylan Edwards was a fantastically deserved Man of the Match last night for the Blues.
Another player that I took my hat off and I was cheering for him when he came on the field, Mitchell Barnett, man. He had a great game, and when I saw him run on the field in that first 5 minutes to replace Angus Crichton, and for him to come in and he was just taking heaps of carries as much as he could. He was opening up the Maroons' defense and carrying some players with him, but he provided a lot of that aggression and that mangu that you need in the Origin arena. I thought that he was outstanding for the Maroons, coming off the bench as well. I thought that he
looks an Origin player.
An
Origin player. And well done to him, and well done to New South Wales. Congratulations for winning the series for this year. All the best to the All Blacks in San Diego against Fiji, and all the best to Fiji as well. That brings us to an end of our show, but there's some changes afoot for our show. Matty, there's going to be a change of name and a change of where people can find us.
Yeah, so you can now find us. You can now find us on our Instagram and TikTok. It'll be called Overtime Pacific Grandstand on Instagram and TikTok. We will provide some content and some clips from our 5:31 PI Pacific Grandstand Overtime podcast, where you can find our two beautiful faces when we go out onto the street, or if we chop it up about different sports. You can find us on there. So please do go and put your support into our page. We'll link it in the description from the Spotify and the YouTube videos of our podcast episode. But yeah, that's where we're going to be. You can also find us on Saturday mornings, Pacific Grandstand, Willie Poaching's Pacific Grandstand show, and 5:31 PI. We chop up sport from 8 o'clock till 11 o'clock too. So yeah.
And please feel free to give us your feedback and your thoughts or any ideas that you'd like to pass on to us. And we're more than welcome to interact with all of you people that are watching us, and we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us and watching us every single week. That's us for another week. Have an enjoyable week. We'll be back next week with our first installment of Overtime Pacific Grandstand. Have a good week.
Queenslander!